Good morning. I am Christy Hurt, and I am one of our pastors here. So, welcome. It feels like maybe fall is almost here. Anybody enjoying getting the hoodies, getting the sweatshirts out? Hopefully, we are actually building a house right now, so we are in an apartment. So, one of us brought all of her clothes with her. The other one has to go try to find some winter clothes, but but one also takes about 3/4 of the closet up too right now. But we have been in a series about emotions, and we are wrapping that up today. So we have talked about just, first of all, how Jesus has emotions, how it's okay for us to have emotions, that just shows that we are human. But that we don't want the devil to get a foothold. We talked about what that foothold meant last week, that we don't want the devil to use those emotions to be able to get a foothold to have us sin through those emotions. So we've talked a little bit about anxiety. Last week we talked about anger. How are you guys feeling over the last 2 weeks? Anybody flip any tables at all last week? Hopefully not. We talked about kind of when we can do that and when we shouldn't. But hopefully, I actually have talked to a few of you, and I love when you come and tell me, because I believe that as your pastor, the words that I give you are from God. They're not, they're on my iPad, but they are from God. So I love when I hear things that you have heard me say that did not actually come out of my mouth, because that means that the Spirit is working in you and He's allowing you to hear what you need to hear. And I love when people come back and say, hey, I was having trouble with this, and this verse really just encouraged me or stuck out to me. So that's why we do this. It's not just for our short little, hour, however long we're here on Sunday. This is to impact the rest of your life, so you can impact others for Christ, to bring them to Him. So today, our very last week, we're going to contrast a couple of different emotions that we see Jesus having. We're going to be looking at sadness, and we're going to be looking at joy. And immediately, if you are my age or have kids, immediately a certain movie comes to mind with sadness and with joy. And I love especially that first one when it talks about bittersweetness, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit, but we're going to look at those two emotions. So first of all, let's just look at some times that Jesus showed joy. Where in the Bible can we see Jesus just joyful? He was joyful when those who had been hurting were healed. He was joyful when the rejected felt loved. He was joyful when the lost were found. He was joyful in all of these times, but there are occasions in the Bible where we see that he cried, or he was so overwhelmed with sadness that he cried. So we want to look at what made Jesus sad. Because if we know what made Jesus sad, then from that we can see also what brings him joy. So in Luke 19, Jesus is traveling to Jerusalem. Now, if you were here last week, and if you weren't, you can go to our YouTube channel, just The Well at Melody Hill, and last week's sermon is on there for you. But last week we talked about the same story. So Jesus is traveling to Jerusalem for the Passover. This is his last week of his life. And there are thousands of other Jewish people that are coming to Jerusalem for the Passover. And we read from Matthew last week, but we're going to look a little bit at Luke today and kind of see this from a different view. So he's coming into Jerusalem. He's with his disciples. And I kind of envision this like he's coming up a hill and he's kind of looking over the hill into Jerusalem. And this is what he says. We're looking at Luke 19, verse 41. As he came closer to Jerusalem, he saw the city ahead, and he began to weep. So he's coming up there, and he's looking at all the people that are coming. I can't remember the number from last week, but we talked about, I think it was like 250,000 that we talked about that come into that city. So he's looking at all of these people coming. He's looking at people who are coming there to worship God. And as he looks over all of that, he just starts weeping. So as we try to figure out why was Jesus crying when he was looking at the city and he see all these people, we need to think about why he was here on earth in the first place. What he came for, so we can figure out why he was upset. He came to bring us abundant life. And that's something I tell myself a lot, that he didn't come just for us to live. He came for us to live life abundantly. He came to seek and save those who were lost, those who were away from him. He came to proclaim the good news to the poor. Remember, he goes to those people who are poor in spirit, who are poor financially, those people that are on the outskirts. He came to them to tell them the good news. He came to recover sight for the blind, and he came to set the prisoners free. And this is so important. He didn't come for those who were righteous or those who thought that they were righteous. He came for the sinners. He didn't come for the healthy. He came for those who were sick, to heal them, to make them well. And he came to show the love of his Father. So we go back and think about Jesus looking over the city of Jerusalem with all of these people coming in. And what made Jesus cry? Now, the Gospels, if you're not aware of this, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are all a lot of the same stories of Jesus. They're just told from different perspectives. So what we're going to do, we were just in Luke, but we're going to look at the same time period in Matthew, because Matthew goes a little bit deeper and gives us a clue as to why Jesus might be crying and so upset as he is looking over Jerusalem. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 23, verse 37. And it reads, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often have I wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me." So what makes God sad? What makes Jesus sad at this time? He wants to love us. He wants to protect us. He wants to comfort us. And he wants to be with us. But we won't let him. And that's what makes him sad. That's what it just said in Matthew, is that they turned the prophets away, God's messengers. They turned him away. And all Jesus wants to do is just be like a little hen. They're on vacation this week, but Bridget and Ronnie Kners have chickens at their house, and she's, a big TikTok famous star now. And so she has lots of videos about the chicks, and I love whenever she shows like the little babies. And so that was what I envisioned. That is what Jesus wants to do. He wants just to wrap his wing around us and protect us and love us and be with us. And what makes him sad is when we say, no, I've got this. I don't need you. And that's what he was crying over when he looked at Jerusalem. So when Jesus hurts, when someone is far away from him. So today we're going to look at 3 ways that we can experience joy with Jesus. And in turn, this also brings Jesus joy, brings both of us joy. So the very first one is to take one step toward your Father. Now, there is a story in Luke chapter 15. And Jesus would tell things called parables. And parables are just basically stories that tell a lesson, that help you understand some kind of truth or lesson that he's telling you. So in Luke chapter 15, he's telling this parable. And I'm just going to tell you, instead of reading the whole chapter to you, I'm just going to tell you the story. So there was this really rich man. And this rich man had 2 sons. He had an older son and a younger son. Well, this younger son was just like, the second child. And if you have a second child, you know what I mean. I just imagine him feral, just like we're doing everything, that he wanted. And so one day, when he's teenage age, it doesn't say exactly his age, but he came to his father and said, I want my inheritance. I want to leave your house. I want you to give me my inheritance, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go out off on my own. Now, for us today, that wouldn't be super respectful if someone did that to their parent today. But in this culture, at this time, it was basically like telling the father, I wish you were dead. Because that's how you would get an inheritance, is if the father died. And so basically he's saying, I wish you were dead. But the father, full of grace, he gave the son his inheritance. Now the son was arrogant. He was rebellious. And I just imagine him being so entitled and taking this inheritance and taking it out. Now, when he left, he had, a big bunch of money. And imagine just like a big bag of all this whatever gold or whatever he had. And he suddenly had lots of friends because, unfortunately, sometimes wealth brings you friends. And so he had all these friends, and he just went out and just partied like nobody has partied before. He spent all of his wealth. He drank. He, got things for his friends. It was just, what he thought his life should be. Everything that he thought he wanted to do, he went out and did that. But unfortunately, that is a hard lifestyle to maintain. And so he spent all of his money. He spent everything he had. And when he spent all of that money, all those people that were his friends left him because he had nothing else that he could give them. So eventually, he is trying to find work. And he eventually starts working for another man, kind of feeding the pigs. So he's in this pig pen, and he's feeding the pigs. Remember, his dad is wealthy. His dad could have given him anything if he would have stayed there. But he spent all of his money. He's with these pigs. He's feeding these pigs, and he hits rock bottom because he starts to look at this food that he's feeding the pigs, and he starts thinking, oh, that looks really good. The slop that I'm feeding the pigs looks good. And he remembers, he thinks, man, my father's servants are eating so much better than I'm eating right now. And he's just filled with shame and with regret, not just because of where he is, but he realizes all the mistakes that he did that led him up to this point where he is right now. And he just realized he was so far from his father, and that's where he needed to be. He needed to be with his father. And I don't know about you, but some of us can relate to this. You may not have taken your earthly father's money and ran out and partied with it. Some of us may, but you may not have done that. But some of you may just feel far away from your father, that your heavenly father. And I know using the word father for God sometimes can be a little triggering. And that's a whole other message to talk about. But we're looking at him today as this father, and we're going to look at how loving this father was. But some of you are far away from him. Some of you may have done it unintentionally. You just slowly, step by step. Maybe you stopped attending church. You stopped attending your life group. You stopped reading your Bible. You stopped spending time with other people who were believers. You just kind of slowly, step by step, went away and drifted from him. And you didn't realize how far you were from him. And we're going to look at Luke. Remember, this is chapter 15. I just kind of summarized it for you, but we're going to look at a couple of verses from here. And I want to look at how this boy, just like us, the son that had intentionally left his father. But look what happens to him when he's in that pig pen. And this is in Luke chapter 15, verse 17, and it reads, "When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death.'" Remember, he's thinking this while he's in this pig pen, looking at the pig slop. And I love how it says, he came to his senses. Because sometimes we need to do that. Sometimes we slip so far away and we're consumed with everything else that's going on. And it takes something to wake us up and make us come to our senses. He realized that there was a problem. He had really, really screwed up. He had messed up his relationship with his father. He had done things that were really bad, not just to his father, but with that money, with the things that he did. He did not live a lifestyle that followed his father's teaching. He had told his father, basically, that he wished he was dead. So he's sitting there and he thinks, the only thing I can do is go back to my father. And so he's walking to his father. And this is something that I resonate with so much, maybe because my teenage years were not the best. But I don't know if any of you have done this. On his way, he's figuring out his story. He's figuring out what he's going to say to his dad. And I don't know if any of you have ever done that before. I think I talked about this last week. I went out with a couple of my friends that I have been friends with for 30 plus years. And we started talking about some of the things, trouble that we would get into when we were in high school together. Innocent trouble, of course, but trouble that we would get into, and we would have to there were no cell phones back then, by the way, because I am old. But we would have to figure out our stories before our parents, because we knew our parents were going to come, and we would have to figure out, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? All those things. And I just see, talk about anxiety from a couple weeks ago. I just see the son, as he's walking to his father, he's replaying the story. What's he going to say? What's going to happen? How is he going to apologize? He just wants to at least just be a servant in his father's family. He doesn't even expect to go back to the status that he had before. So he's walking there and he's thinking, I'm such a sinner. I'm a loser. I'm not worthy to be your son. And that's what he's thinking as he's walking back. And he's thinking, please, just let me be part of your household. You can hire me. I can be your servant, but just let me be part of your household. And Luke 15:20 reads, so he got up and went to his father. And that is the most important thing we can do. He got up. He took one step closer to his father. And we have all done things that we are grossly ashamed of. Some things we haven't even ever told anybody else because they're so deep in our hearts that we can't say them. Maybe you've hurt someone else. Maybe you've lusted. Maybe you've lost that intimacy you have with God. And you just feel dirty about that. Think about him in the pig pen. You feel dirty. You feel unworthy. You don't feel like you can come back to God. But God is telling you, get up from that pig pen, from that dirtiness that you're in, no matter what you feel like you did, no matter how unworthy you feel like you are. Get up from that pig pen and take one step, just one little step towards God. Because this son had no idea what was going on with his father the whole time that he was gone. He didn't realize how much his father still loved him, because every day his father's heart was breaking because of their broken relationship. And going on in Luke 15:20, it reads, "But while he," this is the son, "was still a long way off," so he's walking to his father, and he's still a long way off from his father's home, from where they're at. His father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son and threw his arms around him and kissed him. And notice that speech that the son had all worked up and had all in his mind and has all worried about. He didn't say any of it. The father just saw him from far away and ran to him without any apology, without any words. Now, in their culture, a man never really ran. It was considered undignified. If you see like their little outfits that they wore back then, they were kind of like little skirts. So if they ran, it didn't go well. So it was very undignified for them to run. But this says that the father was running towards him. He could not wait even for him to finish walking towards him. He went out to him. He gave him a robe. He gave him a ring. He gave him sandals. And all of those things have meaning that are bringing him back into the family, not as a servant, but as a son. He even killed a fattened calf and had a big party for him. Again, remember, the son has not apologized. The son has not said anything. The father just loves him so much and is happy, so happy that he just walked back and came back. The father says, "I am no longer sad. My son isn't dead. He's alive. He's home." So you can take, if you are in that pig pen, if you feel ashamed, if you feel dirty, if you feel like either intentionally or not even on purpose, you have drifted from God, all you have to do is just get up and take one step towards him, and he will come running to you. The second thing we can do to have joy with Jesus is to enjoy a relationship with him instead of just following the rules. Now, remember, there were two sons. Now, the older brother is still back at the house, and he hears this commotion going on, this party, these things that are happening. And he got so angry once he heard that the party was for his brother who had left, took his part of the money, splurged it on everything, came back, and his father is throwing a party for him. He is so mad, and he will not even go to the party. The older son never physically left his father's house. He was still in that relationship. He was still there. But he had also drifted from his father. He didn't have that loving relationship. He didn't have that feeling with his father. He had drifted in a different way. Remember, what God wants most from you, more than anything else, is a relationship. That's all he wants from you. He just wants intimacy with you and wants to know you and wants you to come to him. Now, the older son, he was obedient to the father. He did what the father said. He worked his land. He did all of those things. But he wasn't intimate with him. He didn't have that relationship with his father. He was physically present, but his heart was not in the relationship. So I want you to think for a minute. Maybe that first son, you thought, oh, no, I'm good. Like, I haven't gone away from God. I attend church every week. I part of my small group. I read my Bible. Like, I do all of those things. I haven't drifted. But when we think about the second son, then you start connecting and you realize, yeah, I might still be physically present in all of these things and doing the right things, but I don't have that intimacy anymore. Maybe I never had it, or I've drifted away from that intimacy I used to have with God. Do you feel like sometimes you're just following the rules? Maybe you're just checking off the boxes, but you've lost that intimacy. So many of us, if you grew up in church, a lot of us grew up thinking that you had certain rules that you had to follow. So I have grown up my whole life in church. I know that's not true for all of us, but I grew up my whole life in church. And I feel like I went to pretty good churches, churches that loved God. But in my head, there were certain things that I should do and certain things I shouldn't do. Certain things I should wear, certain things I shouldn't wear, all of those different kinds of things. Certain things I should listen to, certain things I shouldn't listen to. And as long as I was following all of those rules, I could check all of those off, then I was good. I was a Christian, I was a follower of Jesus, I was good. But it wasn't until I got older that I realized that doesn't bring any intimacy at all with God. That's just a bunch of rules. It can. It's all dependent on your heart, on where your heart was. For me personally, my heart was not in any of that. I am, as an adult, not necessarily what you would call a rule follower. So I like to make up my own. I follow rules. They're just my rules that I like to follow. So I have turned away from that some. But I think it's so important for us to realize that difference between that relationship and those rules. It does not mean, I am not telling you that some of those rules, some of those, God put things in the Bible. We are a holiness denomination. We are to be set apart. There are rules and things that God has asked us to follow in the Bible that are for our own good, that are important. So I am not saying that we ditch all those and do whatever we want. I'm saying our heart is what is important. And when we take that step towards God and we begin to have that intimacy with God, He'll start working on your heart about those rules. Some of them are important, some of them were just man-made. So you can start working on those with Him. But I think it's so important that when we look at this father in Luke 15 in this parable, that he loved both of his sons equally. He loved the rebel that went away and came back, and he also loved the rule follower who stayed in his house, but he wanted just as much intimacy with him. And this is what the father said to the second son. This is Luke 15, verses 31 and 32. And it reads, "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." So he's saying, we could always have a fattened calf. You always had a party. You could always have anything. You didn't come to me and tell me that that's what you wanted or needed, but it was always here. You could have always had this. But we had to celebrate and we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. So if you feel like you're connecting to that second brother, that you feel like you have followed the rules, and you get a little annoyed, honestly, at people who are just, loved. Maybe, they have a really hard backstory. And it's hard, I get it, it's hard sometimes as Christians to admit that, to say, yeah, yay, we're so glad that your life was changed, but I've always been here, I've done all of this stuff. Think about that you are with the Father. You have had the privilege to have a story that you have always been with the Father. You just haven't always taken advantage of the intimacy that you are allowed with him. You've been so busy worrying about what you're doing and what you're not doing to share that love with him. So first, we're going to take a step towards him. Second, we're going to focus on that relationship that is the most important. And the third thing to bring both us and Jesus joy is to bring someone with you. And today, I mean to church. Bring someone with you to church. I understand, I feel like I've said this a few times today, but church, our worship service is about an hour and a half of your whole week. So I understand through worship, through what God says through me, I don't want to say this, don't listen to this, Mark. We're not making a huge difference for the hour and a half that you're here. What we're making is we are hopefully opening your heart to what God is going to do through you for the rest of the week. The people he's going to have you in contact with, the people that he's going to bring to you. We're just like a little match that starts what happens. But I do believe it's important to bring people here with you because this is an amazing community of people that when you are struggling, when you are hurting, when you feel like you are down with the pigs and you are dirty, you can turn to someone here and talk to them about that. Let them know that. And people out in the world don't have that. Look at social media. Look at how people are torn down. So I think it's so important to bring people here to let them see this community. And not just our church, there are tons of wonderful churches in our community that do this too. But for us, we're talking about the Well today. So bring them here. Let them see the people that will love them, that will show them Jesus and be real to them. Heaven rejoices, and angels sing, and God throws a party when one sinner repents. I wore this sweatshirt usually. I had to ask permission for this because usually when we're on stage, we try not to wear a lot of words because then you're just paying attention to what my shirt says. But I got this shirt for my birthday this week, and I thought it was so good for today. It just says, "Make heaven crowded." And I think that's part of what we are to do, that we are to make heaven crowded. But heaven is awesome. Like I'm so excited to go there. I mean, it is our reward for following Jesus, but I don't think heaven is just the goal. I think bringing people into a light, into love, into looking. I know we were just talking with our staff about people in their lives that are hurting right now, that have broken relationships. And we know that the answer for them is a relationship with Jesus. We know that. So why aren't we telling them that? Why aren't we talking to them about that? And I think one of the reasons that I think it's so important to bring people, this is personally to me, is I would not be here today talking to you about Jesus if it wasn't for lots of years ago when a little girl invited my grandma to go to VBS with her. And so a little girl down the street from my grandma invited her to go to VBS. She went to VBS. She started going to that church. She raised my mom in that church. That church is where she met my dad. And then I came along. And so that heritage for me of 3 generations of people who are following God came from one little girl who asked her neighbor to come to VBS. So we could be doing the same thing. We could start a generation of people who love God and who are healed by him just by talking to our neighbor, just by talking to the person who sits at the cubicle next to us, that somebody that we see on a daily basis. Maybe the person, your Walmart, either maybe you go to Walmart or the person who drops off your Walmart at your door. Whatever, you can talk to those people. And we, again, with our staff, we were talking this week, and it's weird. Like, I understand that. It's my job is a pastor. So as soon as I tell people that I'm a pastor, the whole conversation changes. Mark tells people that he is in charge of a nonprofit organization. So that way the whole thing doesn't change. And sometimes it's hard because I'm very proud to be a pastor, but sometimes I don't want to tell people that because they start to put, they stop saying some words, they stop making some jokes, they stop, doing things, and I don't want them to. I want them to be who they are. But for those of you that are in different work, I know it's hard sometimes to bring up your faith. It might seem a little weird. It might seem hard to kind of organically stick it in the conversation. But if you are such a follower of God and you are so intimate with him and everything in your life just exudes his light, it's not that hard to talk about. I think about that for me. Sorry if this is offensive to anyone, I love Taylor Swift. Thank you, I knew it wouldn't forever. It is so easy for me to talk about Taylor Swift, for me to talk about what I like about her new album, what I don't, all the lyrics, all the whole lore of everything. I got it all. Like, I can talk about that. Why can't I talk about that, which is really silly, like not really important, and not talk about everything that God has done for me and the story, the way that which he has changed my life? Because as much as I love Taylor Swift, she's not going to change your life. She's not going to. She might make your day a little happier for a little while, but she's not going to change your life. But I know a God who can come in and heal you and change you and help you. So why am I not telling people about him? And this is not meant to be like I'm throwing guilt or shade or anything at you guys. I'm talking to myself. I'm just trying to understand why do we not do this? Why do we not tell people about our faith? Because I think it will bring God so much joy. We know that when one person comes to the faith, and I know when Caden was singing today, this is not exactly what this song means. I totally understand that, but when he was saying like one more, that's what I was thinking as he was singing that, just that one more to Christ, one more to him, that just one more that loves him and is healed and lives an abundant life because of him. And we can do that. We can show them that way. So I want you to think, after today, especially with this whole series, all of us might be feeling a little bit different ways. You might have been really working on your anxiety. You might really be working on some anger issues you have. But today, I think all of us fall in to one of these categories. We are either this first son that has intentionally rebelled in our life. We have walked away from him. We have used what he has given us in ways it was not meant to be used. And because you're here today, unless someone dragged you here, you are taking a step closer to him. Some of us might fall in that second category, that we feel like, oh, went to church today, check that off. I read my Bible this morning, check that off, which is awesome and are great, amazing things to do that will bring you closer to God, but they won't bring you closer to God if your heart is not in them. Remember that step towards God just comes with one step. If we could go ahead and have our worship team come back up. We're going to play that last song again. And I want us to think as they're playing today, just where are you at in this? Are you needing to take one step closer to God? Are you feeling like you have walked away or you've just drifted away from him and you need to come back to him? Or has God put someone on your mind, on your heart, in your spirit that you feel like, I need to tell my story about God to them? They come to me all the time with issues, with things that have happened, and I give them advice, but I don't give them Jesus. This right here, if you're not aware, this wood up here is called an altar. And so at an altar is a place that you can come. There's nothing special about it. It's just wood. It's not like magic or anything. But it's this place that you can come that's kind of separate from your everyday life. And you can come and you can pray here. You can pray alone. You can have other people come pray with you. It's whatever you want to do. But you can make this as a symbol to you, as when Satan starts coming back and saying, oh, no, we're not going to do this today, or you read your Bible, that's great, who cares about your heart? When he starts coming in, you can say, no, I remember that day in October that I came to the altar, that I said, this is it. I am taking that one step. I'm getting out of this pig pen. I'm taking that step. Doesn't matter how dirty I am. I don't even have to apologize because God wants to come. My Father wants to come running toward me. If I tell him about the things that I've done, he's just going to forgive me. He's going to love me. No matter which side, which sun you're on, this altar is open for you. It's also open for you to pray for others who you want to tell your story to. So they're going to play that last song one more time, and it's just open to you. And so you can come and pray. You can talk to him about, and maybe there's something that has nothing to do with anything that we've talked about today, but you just feel like you need to come and pray with him. The altar is open for you, and we'll finish this up. And after our song, I'll just pray one last time to close this out.